Hindu men are bad, demonizing Aryavarta, and portraying Hindus as if they have not done anything for the society. And if you're still being mistaken to think that I'm talking about Bollywood or OTT platforms, then here let me intervene with your thought process a bit and tell you that this exists in a much larger capacity. Mukuti Aman, a recent Tamil release which is exactly built on the foundations of the same Hindu phobia what maximum people call out. And joining me today is Aravindan sir, who will talk about this entire issue in a much greater extent. Hello, sir.
Hi.
Sir, I read this piece that you've written on Swaraj on this movie. So what caught my attention and surprise was the fact it was not just a movie review that basically people do. It just not focused on the content, but it had a lot to deal with the content along with the mise-en-scène that the movie was built in. So I would like you to tell the audience what the setting of the movie is and what the movie is all about.
Usually, this is a template that has already been there in Hollywood for a long time. That a god comes, usually a Hindu god comes and looks at all the social evils, all the kind of hypocrisy that is happening around and criticizes the society. This particular template actually has been borrowed from the rationalist movement of the West. For example, there is this wonderful novel by Mary Corelli called Master Christian, where actually Jesus comes and at last declares that the entire church, Pope, everybody is actually against him. Okay, and a lot of people in India, they started using this template borrowed from the West and they put it in the Indian context. And the first sort of a movie was done in 1978 by a director called Vijayan, in which Siva comes, and they very interestingly used a comedian, V.K. Ramasamy, as Siva coming, and he makes a critique of the entire society from a very communist point of view, a leftist point of view. For example, a person comes and complains to God, telling, I have been learning all these traditional Tamil devotional hymns, and my life, I have always been suffering. And then Siva answers. Siva tells the priest that who asked this guy to learn all those traditional things? He should have actually earned a livelihood. So the traditional learning is kind of made to look inappropriate, or it is the lazy people learn it, something like that. That it is not a rationalist who says it. It is God himself comes and says that. But the movie ended as if it was all a dream by the priest, so on. Now, in 2020, the same template is being used. This time by a local goddess. A local goddess comes and she tells all the things that every anti-Hindu wants to say. She tells all the Hindu-phobic things, but this time it is told by a Hindu goddess. So, for an ordinary movie-going person, it is a kind of a validation. And the content along with the socio-cultural context becomes essentially a hate propaganda. That is the problem with the movie.
Yes, sir. And now that you've given us the larger picture of what the movie looks like and what the content in the movie actually is, what do you think, sir, what it tries to profess? Is it right, or it is majorly what's wrong in that?
The main thing that is wrong is this. See, I don't know whether what Marx told about religion being the opiate of people, but definitely pseudo-secularism has become the opiate of India. What has happened is the so-called secular establishment creates a critique of Hindu society. It is not with the aim of reforming it, but with the aim of making it sleep so that it can be easily destroyed. So this movie tells the same thing. What this movie says is, like, for example, I will give you one particular example from this movie. There is this girl child, and she is the second girl child or something in that family. So she is sort of unwanted in the family. So they gave her a name. The family gives her a name, which means unwanted. The name itself means unwanted. So they give a name like that to the child. The girl starts going to the convent. And then the brother notices, the brother who is the hero of the movie, he notices that she starts putting cross when she goes to sleep. She prays to Jesus when she goes to sleep, and he is shocked. So the family also notices that she does not wear bindi anymore. And when they make her wear bindi, what she does is she removes it when people are not noticing and throws it away. With a contempt, she throws it away. They show it in the movie. And at last the brother, agitated, he comes to the school. He looks at he talks to a nun and says that, please don't convert my sister. We are all from an Orthodox Hindu family. He is almost pleading. And then the sister says, see, thousands of children are studying in this school. We are not converting anyone. You also studied in this school. We didn't convert you. We don't convert. When Jesus calls, people themselves become Christians. So she says this. Now, the implication is this, that the Hindu traditional family does not like the child, does not like a female child, does not give the needed dignity to the female child, but it is given in a Christian environment. So the conversion is natural. That is what the movie implies. This actually plays on a larger theme, a larger real problem. The larger real problem is this, that in the Christian schools, in most of the Christian convents, vulnerable sections of Hindu students become prey to conversion. They force Hindu students not to wear their traditional vibhuti, kumkum, and flowers. So this is a complaint that has been going on for a long time. But here, the movie very subtly reverses it. It is the family that forces the child to put the bindi. The child on her own removes the bindi. Number one. Number two, the movie is set in Kanyakumari district where I live. This very same district, 7 years or 8 years ago, a big problem came. The students who have been sent to school in a Christian convent, they were gathered for a convention, and the convention was very much like, if you have seen Jesus Camp documentary in United States, where the children were being subjected to a kind of traumatic abuse, psychological abuse. Almost similarly, the students were subjected to a traumatic psychological abuse where they were made to feel so guilty, and they started rolling in the ground in pain and agony, mental pain and agony. So these videos, they became viral, and people started questioning what is happening. Now, you have to see this movie in this context. The movie essentially rationalizes, justifies the conversion attempts and predation of minor children by educational institutions using their authority, and they justify it. So this is just one example. Like that, there are a lot of examples inside the movie. So the movie is essentially telling the Hindus the only thing that you have to do is be submissive to proselytizing agencies. That is your only thing that you should do as Hindus. That is what it says.
All right, sir, having talked about pseudo-secularism and the theme, the conversion theme that this movie focuses about, I guess media in the society plays basically three roles: to inform, to educate, and to entertain. But media in this age seems to have gone beyond the boundaries of all these things. And after that, what happens is the mind targeting starts. So what do you think, sir? Any movie like this can just be seen as a movie, or there's a greater propaganda hidden behind a movie, named movie?
So whenever we start doing this criticism, this is what they always say, that you have to see a movie as a movie. But here, movie is being made as a propaganda. In fact, the movie has been made as a project to make Hindus feel guilty about themselves. And this particular movie, what it does is, it creates, it identifies the fault lines, either really existing or fabricated. For example, in this movie, the goddess comes. The goddess is a Kula Devata of that particular family. So this goddess comes and the family is trying to go to Tirupati to see Balaji. And the goddess says, why you have to go to Tirupati? Am I not powerful? So here it is playing on this particular theme that there are certain gods who are minor deities, there are certain gods who are small gods, and there are certain gods who are bigger gods. In fact, it actually maps into Brahminical and non-Brahminical deities. And again, that maps into Aryan and non-Aryan deities. So from the very academic, speculative Aryan, non-Aryan deities binary, it slowly comes into the collective psyche of the people, telling that certain gods are Brahminical, certain gods are not Brahminical, and only the Brahminical gods are worshipped and venerated and promoted in Hinduism. Non-Brahminical gods are kind of sidelined. This was stated by none other than Kamal Haasan when he said some years ago in an interview, he says, God is everywhere. You say God is everywhere, then why you are forcing people to go to Tirupati? Now, this statement made by Kamal Haasan, who himself bases it on some other professor in folk studies, is now made into part of a popular entertainment information. So when a Hindu sees this, he thinks that, okay, why should I go to Tirupati? Why should I go to Palani? Why should I go to Sabarimala? Why not I just concentrate on my own local deities? It is good. You concentrate on your own local deities. That is good. But you have to see the larger picture. The larger picture is this. Mahatma Gandhi himself mentions this in Hind Swaraj. This nation is created by the feet of the pilgrims. Always a person who is born in Tamil Nadu wants to go to Kasi. A person who is born in Kasi wants to come to Rameswaram. And thus, this nation is created by this constant moving of the pilgrims. But this project, what it does, it tells, don't go on a pilgrimage. Don't go to different places. Just concentrate on your local deities. Now, what is the problem with this concentrating only on the local deities, excluding the greater deities or the so-called common deities, is this. Once you start concentrating only on the local deities, then they come with another one point, telling that these deities are actually not deities, but just your ancestors. So your entire religion gets reduced to ancestral worship. After that, it is very easy to create a spiritual vacuum. And once a spiritual vacuum is created, Christianity can always come in. So this is the actual project that is behind this very innocent looking, even now just looking themes that these people create. That is number one. Number two, what about these Brahmin, non-Brahminical deities? In reality, a lot of Brahmins have the so-called non-Brahminical deities as their Kula Devatas. And a lot of so-called non-Brahmins have a lot of so-called Brahmin deities as their Kula Devata. There is no such thing as this category itself. There are Brahmin deities and non-Brahmin deities. There are higher deities and lower deities. It's itself false. The truth is this. The simple truth is this. No goddess, no local goddess asks her devotees not to go and worship another one god in the next road. No goddess asks her deities to go on a holy war, to go on a jihad and cut the slit of the non-believers. This is the nature of all our deities. The Hindu, very instinctively, he knows that all the deities are the manifestations of the same Brahman. Once you remove this spiritual core and then you create these anthropological fabrications over the deities and then you bring it into the common mindset of the people, what you are actually doing is creating a big template for future genocidal wars between communities. So that is why these are very, very dangerous things.
So yes, having talked about this specific movie and moving on to the greater picture where OTT platforms have now come into play, we definitely have a lot of people calling out the Hindu-phobic content, but obviously the audience might have their own set of reactions and thoughts on what Hindu-phobia is. But I would like you to profess us and tell us what are the problems with such depictions.
The problem with such depictions is this. See, whether we like it or not, we Hindus are in the same place where the Jews were in pre-Holocaust times. This is something that we have to understand very clearly. In the pre-Holocaust time, what led to the Holocaust itself is not the rise of Hitler alone. For almost 2000 years, and particularly after the Protestant backlash that happened after, say, 16th century, anti-Semitism became part and parcel of the cultural world of Europe. You can very easily depict a Jew as a negative person. You can depict Judaism as a very evil religion. You can always tell that Jews are mice lenders. They are the people who exploit the entire society. They are the parasites, etc. And this slowly led to the possibility of Holocaust. In the case of Hindus, this is happening in a very slow motion. In fact, Holocaust itself is happening in a slow motion. I always used to say, some 4 years back, I told it in a particular lecture in Madras, that if you have gone to a Hindu who was living in Lahore in 1920s and told him that one day you will have to become a refugee, you would have to leave everything and come over to India, he would have laughed at you. The same way a Kashmiri Pandit would have laughed at you in 1960s. And the same way the East Bengali would have laughed at you in 1930s. But they are all refugees today. It is because slowly and steadily, this particular desensitizing of the collective mind to the violence towards Hindus have been happening. And where it is happening, it is not happening in the very explicit anti-Hindu propaganda places. It is happening through the movies. It is happening through the general mindset. So I studied in 9th standard in my textbook, and it never got into me at that time. There was a chapter on Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. Next, there was a chapter on Aryans and the Vedic society, in which they said the Vedic societies had superstitions. This is Tamil Nadu textbook society in 1980s. Vedic society had superstitions like rebirth, karma, etc. Now, who gave these people the authority to tell the rebirth and karma are superstitions? But we learned it. We didn't even think of it as a kind of Hindu-phobic thing, and we just memorized it, we wrote it, we got our marks in our examinations. Thus, these things slowly go inside us. So, when this Hindu-phobic thing come in the picture, for example, a Brahmin is always caricatured as a joker or as a kind of a villainous person. His attire, the way he, a traditional Hindu, live Brahmin, a traditional Hindu who wears vibhuti and who puts the Vaishnavite sacred paste on his forehead, he is shown as a kind of a joker. And the very symbol of the Vaishnavite sacred symbol on the forehead is today in Tamil Nadu an equivalent of cheating a person. See how these things, these negative things have been slowly piling upon on Hindus. And because of that, when a very strong attack on Hindus come, we don't even have the capacity to tell that the Hindus have been attacked. You go through all the newspaper reports of Kashmiri Hindus being massacred, you will find that it says Kashmiri Pandits attacked. That is true in a way, but they were not attacked because they were Pandits. There are a lot of Gauls, there are a lot of Butts in the Islamic community also. They were not killed. So they were not killed because they were Pandits. They were killed because they were Hindus. And always it says this is a provocation. Killing Hindus is not a crime in itself. It is a provocation. So you have to be very calm, quiet. That is just a provocation, nothing else. And so the refugees, instead of refugees, they always write migrants. So it is something like Hindus brought it all on themselves. Somehow it is a very natural thing for Hindus to get killed, eliminated, and ethnic cleansed. And this is the problem with this kind of media depictions. These media depictions are very steady, slow steps towards the Holocaust that is already happening.
Yes, sir. Along with what you said right now, we have other situation that's crept in recently where OTT platforms have majorly focused on Hindu-phobic content. There's another thing that's come out, which is people calling out Hindu-phobia as Hindu-phobia. And there comes the another narrative that's been emerging where people call that Hindus are now becoming largely intolerant. So what is your take on that?
See, when we call Hindu-phobia as Hindu-phobia, there are two things that we have to take into consideration. One is, we need not say that it is hurting our sentiments. hurting the sentiment of a particular community, hurting the sentiments of a particular belief system is the basic right of any creative person in any democratic society. We don't worry about that. What we have to concentrate is on the hate and negative stereotypes and willful distortions. These distortions have to be brought out and they have to be fought. When we tell that it is hurting the Hindu sentiments, then we are on the wrong side. We are just like, we are talking like any monopolistic expansionist religion that says that do not touch our scriptures. So if suppose tomorrow a religion comes with the flat earth concept as its core and then start saying that if you are talking about earth being not flat hurts my religious sentiments, then it is very clearly ridiculous. In the same way, I will give you another one specific example in this, though it is not related to a movie, but it is related to this larger context. There was this novel by Perumal Murugan called Madhurabhagam. This novel depicted a particular religious festival as a place where the married women who are not having children used to use that particular occasion to get themselves impregnated in through strangers. And that is why if a woman who doesn't have a child for a long time and then gives birth to a child, it is called the child has been given by God because of this particular extramarital affair that went on in that particular festival setting of the Hindu temple. It was a very famous Hindu temple. The problem with this particular novel is that he says this in a very true Hindu temple, and he has already got a grant to study the religious practices of that area and express that particular thing in the form of a fiction. So what happens here is that a festival that never happens in that area, that has never happened, there is no proof, no historical proof of that has ever happened in that area, purely through fiction becomes part of legitimate history of that area. The people of that particular village do not have the same amount of narrative power to even challenge this, because this is going to be taught in Cambridge, this is going to be taught in American universities in the so-called Southeast Asian or South Asian departments. And there they are going to characterize this particular temple like this. Down the years, after a decade, it will become part of anthropological data that this kind of rituals happened in this particular area. Now, what has to be fought here is not that the novel is hurting the religious sentiment. It can hurt or it need not hurt, that is a different thing. What has to be fought here is whether this is true. If it is true, then we accept it. If it is not true, then the author has to apologize. The same thing has to be taken for each and every Hindu-phobic scene. You have to find out whether that particular aspect is factual, whether there is a distortion, whether there is a negative image. Perhaps we can again take the example of Anti-Defamation League in United States, which studies a lot of anti-Semitic imagery that is being created and propagated. Calling an anti-Semitic imagery is not intolerant. It is calling out hate. The same thing applies for Hindus also. Calling out a Hindu-phobic imagery as Hindu-phobic imagery is not intolerance. It is calling out hate.
Absolutely, sir. And having talked about this, I guess the most important message that you iterated with this conversation today was the fact that if there's something that's depicted as Hindu-phobic, we must go out and reach out and read about it, whether it's factually correct or there's been a distortion in all of that. So while we both can go talking endlessly about this, because there are not so many rare depictions, but there are too many depictions to talk, we must realize, and the audience must know by now, that all of this is not so rare. And this is not on a very normal level that we are talking about. This becoming a larger problem in the society. And now we need to realize that there have to be times that we as audiences must call out things such as which are Hindu-phobic, and must hold a mirror up to the media, which audiences need to do on a regular basis. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. And thank you, viewers, for watching this.
Thank you. It is a pleasure talking.